said he will issue an executive order to require voter ID in order to cast a ballot. He also repeated his opposition to the widespread adoption of mail-in ballots. Joining us now to discuss is legal analyst Bobby Ann Cox. She's a civil rights attorney and fellow at the Brownstone Institute. So Bobby Ann, thank you very much for joining us on this Labor Day. So what do you think? The Constitution gives states the authority, right, to run elections. What is the legal basis then for a president to issue an executive order mandating voter ID or banning mail-in ballots?
So in this instance, we need to look at the elections clause of the U.S. Constitution. You are correct. It does say that states are the ones that get to control their elections in their states. However, it also says that it's with regards to congressional elections, that Congress can overrule the states. So if you read it carefully, states can control their elections. They can do them as they want. However, that doesn't give them free rein to do anything and everything they want. So the Elections Clause says that for congressional elections, federal elections, that Congress can step in and override a state. And what we're going to see here is a battle between President Trump issuing an executive order and what is Congress going to do? So the Elections Clause in our Constitution doesn't say that a president can issue an executive order in order to impose something like federal ID requirement for voting. But we did see in March of this year, there's currently a lawsuit going on because in March of this year, President Trump issued an executive order along similar lines with regards to voting, and which is currently in litigation. And in that case, the government attorneys are arguing that President Trump does have the power to do this via executive order because as the executive of the United States, he is charged with, as per the Constitution, enforcing our laws. And enforcing our laws means enforcing laws passed by Congress as well as enforcing the Constitution. So I have a feeling this is going to, if he issues this second executive order with regards to voter ID in elections, I have a feeling this is going to also end up as litigation in the courts to try to have the courts decide, what exactly is the purview of the Elections Clause in the Constitution. Does a president have the power to do this by executive order? Does Congress have to pass a law that requires nationwide voter ID in elections? So I have a feeling this is going to end up in the courts.
Okay, so I want to make this clear. Is the battlefield going to be with Congress or with the courts? Which one's going to play a bigger role?
Well, certainly Congress can pass a law to this effect. And in fact, the SAVE Act, which was passed by the House of Representatives a few months back, but was not successful in the U.S. Senate, has language to that effect. So Congress can take action as per our Constitution. If Congress wants to pass a law that says that the states must require voter identification for those who are voting in the federal elections, then that's going to hold. In my opinion, that would be constitutional, that would be legal. That is a possibility that Congress can pass such a law. But what's going to be curious in this situation is that we have the president saying that he's going to issue an executive order requiring the nationwide, voter ID in order to vote. So the question then becomes, number one, is there going to be a legal challenge to that? Number two, is Congress going to then act on that? Sometimes when a president issues an executive order on a policy that they would like to see implemented, sometimes that then turns into Congress taking steps and making that into a federal law. And so it's going to depend which way this goes. I don't know if Congress is going to act on that. I don't know if the U.S. Senate is going to, take up the SAVE Act and pass the SAVE Act. It's very questionable which way this is going to go, but certainly from a legal standpoint, Congress would have the authority to make such a law requiring voter ID nationwide.
Okay, Bobby Ann, I also wanted to talk about the pros and cons of voter ID itself. So one of the arguments against voter ID is, does requiring that create barriers to voting?
Yes, so that is a common stance that you hear that is coming from those who do not support voter ID. In my opinion, I mean, that is just a ludicrous position to take, and it's also racist because what they're saying oftentimes in that argument is, well, you know, those of the minority classes are not able to get voter or get government issued identification as easily as those who are not in the minority classes. And therefore, you know, it's harder for those in the minority classes to vote because, you know, they can't get government issued IDs. That's, like I said, ludicrous, and it's racist. Are you implying that they don't have the cognitive abilities to get a government issued ID? I mean, come on. If that really is an obstacle for monetary reasons, then the simple way to solve that problem is, okay, then for purposes of issuing government issued IDs for voting purposes, you make those IDs free, right? The government pays for it, or our tax dollars pay for it. But yes, those that oppose voter ID are certainly not doing it because they think that it is more difficult for certain people of certain classes to get IDs. The only reason you oppose voter ID is because you want to be able to skew the results. You want to be able to cheat. You want to be able to have people voting that shouldn't be voting. And we see that coming out right now. You know, the governor of California has said, and the governor of Illinois have both said that they do not want ICE agents anywhere near the election polls because it will scare people away. Well, the only people that you're going to scare away if you have ICE agents standing at the polls are people who shouldn't be voting, right? We're not supposed to have illegal aliens voting in our country. So this is all really just smoke and mirrors from where I can see.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about the cost issue, but you already addressed that in your answer. So I'll talk to you about the pros and cons of mail-in ballots now. Almost 1/3 of Americans voted by mail in 2024. What impact could it have eliminating it?
Right. So I don't think it's going to have an impact if you eliminate mail-in voting. I don't think it's going to have an impact on those who want to vote, right? If you want to vote, you go to the polls and you vote. If you can't, now what President Trump has said is he'd like to eliminate mail ballots for everyone except those who are actually ill and cannot get to the polls, and then the military who are deployed somewhere and cannot get to the polls. And those were the instances in which we had the ability to do mail ballots originally. And many states have made this mail ballot into almost an automatic thing, particularly in New York. You know, there's no reason you have to provide if you want to vote by mail today, which is not only against, you know, common sense and security, it's also against our New York State Constitution. But what we see happening is that some states are allowing mail ballots to be an automatic thing, meaning they automatically mail out a ballot to vote to the names on the registration, the voter registration rolls. Now, what happens in that instance is it becomes very dangerous that that ballot won't actually end up in the right hands. Because if you're mailing ballots out to every name on your voter registration rolls, but you have people on those rolls that either moved or they passed away or they left the state completely, or they just shouldn't be on the rolls in the first place because they're not eligible, because they're not an actual citizen of the country or a citizen of that state, you know, then you've got a situation where you've got these ballots being mailed to people at addresses where they may not be, or they are and they shouldn't be voting, and that encourages people to vote who shouldn't be voting. So if they get rid of mail ballots and only keep it for those who are military deployed, not there, cannot physically go and vote, and those that are so ill that they cannot physically go and vote, I actually think you're going to see an increase in the security of our elections. Because if you look at other nations, the United States is one of very few nations that allow for mail ballots. So it's other countries have these safeguards in place because they want to have secure elections and they want to have accountability. So I do think we should be tightening the reins on who can do mail ballots and when you can do mail ballots.
Well, all right, Bobby, and very comprehensive, very informative, as always. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the Labor Day holiday.
Thank you. You as well.